Oh, the craziest thing just happened, and you guys can go ahead and mark your calendars down. But King Z actually talked me into seeing a movie that I was pretty sure I wasn't going to like, and I liked it. All right, King Z. You're looking dapper today with the white hat on. I'm going with the black hat. Hopefully that doesn't reflect our views on the movie. I have a feeling we're going to land around the same spot with this one. But before we even do first impressions, dude, I know you diligently did your research. You have some information for our people. Give them what they need to know.
All right, welcome back. We're doing Dungeons & Dragons Among Thieves that was released on March 31st of 2023. It has a runtime of 2 hours and 14 minutes. It was directed by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. Now, both of these guys have worked together before on a few movies. One of note would be Game Night and Vacation, which was based off the National Lampoon, the Moving On, where it was like Rusty growing up.
Yep.
It was written by the same two people as well as Mike Giglio. He also has story by. So what that means is story by is that he's pretty much came up with the story where everyone else just ironed out the beats inside of it. It was his story. He also worked with Chris McKay, who is known for directing the War of Tomorrow and Lego Batman movie. So that's pretty cool.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, the cinematographer is Barry Peterson, who's known for Thunder Force, The Spy Who Dumped Me, and he also comes from that Game Night crew. All right, so this movie stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Renee Jean Page, Justin Smith, Sophia Lilly, Hugh Grant, Chloe Coleman, and Daisy Head, and Susanna Brout. Oh, no, sorry. That was the art director. I got her name just in case. Because
just got a little long.
I want to bring up some things. Yeah.
Okay, true that.
I mean, all of those are pretty well known. One of the least known, I would say, would be Chloe Coleman, who's known from the show Pretty Little Liars and also My Spy with Dave Bautista.
There we go.
Yeah. The movie had a budget of roughly $150 million, and so far worldwide has brought in $162 million.
All right. So a little on the underside from the numbers we typically crunch. You know, even when it hits the budget number, we got to add marketing costs, things like that. So sadly, hopefully this movie makes a little bit of money on second runs and on physical media sales. Because King Z, first impression, I'm glad you talked me into going to see this. I had a blast. The runtime didn't feel like 2 hours to me at all. I thoroughly enjoyed everything that I saw on screen. A lot of the early parts of the movie brought me back to reading old Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance books, especially when they put the map with some of the locations on screen. They kind of followed up on some of those locations and references to characters and magic items and things like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's kind of cool. Oh, I remember that place. That's kind of cool. So this was a good Saturday movie for me to go check out on my own and just, you know, kind of relax for a bit, watch something a little lighthearted, fun. It had its funny beats, and unlike and this is my obligatory dig at Marvel, because you knew you weren't getting away with the movie chat without at least one. The humor never came at the expense of the serious ever. Like they had their tense moments, and there was some lightheartedness and some tension breaking where appropriate. But when bad things happen, they generally had to sweat it out a little bit and not undercut the whole thing with some stupid one-liner from like a Joss Whedon ripoff, studio executive writer type of guy. So I had fun. I'll leave it at that. I had fun, and I'm glad I saw that.
Yeah, the movie. I went the Tuesday after Masters Week. Me and my wife went. I was taking a couple days to myself after working the Masters Week because it takes a lot out of you, so we decided to go see it. I've been excited ever since I saw the trailer for this movie. Mm-hmm. One, seeing Chris Pine as a bard just was like, wow. And a huge thing about Chris Pine is that Chris Pine actually sought out this movie. He's not a typical lead for this style of movie, but he sought it out after watching his nephews play Dungeons & Dragons and was like, man, they had a lot of fun. I want to bring this to the screen. So that was the cool thing about that.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, me and my wife both enjoyed it. My wife actually wants to go back and see it again because we just enjoyed ourselves. It was a movie you just enjoy yourself. It wasn't, groundbreaking,
Nope.
Oscar winning.
Nope.
But it was an entertaining, fun movie to watch. It hit a lot of the classical story beats that you would see in any type of this type of story, as well as it had a lot of the game mechanics in it as well, which I really appreciated.
And I'm going to call on you to talk about that when we get a little bit deeper into the movie, because I'm like I said, a few good years away from playing, homebrew Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Was it a 3rd and a half edition, from way back when I was probably playing that in junior high and high school and a little bit in college. So I know the game has come a long way and it's changed, but I think there was enough familiar there for me to instantly be grounded in the location and just kind of accepting things for what it was. And we're going to talk story beats too, because that was one of the things I did write down on the iPad there in the in the theater, was that it felt good to get back to a movie from me that had just some of those beats where people just acted normal and they did logical things, and the story took a logical progression from beginning to act 1 to high point to act 2, and then rising tension, Dark Night of the Soul, all those things you talk about on beat sheets and plot planners and studio binders and things like that. Like, all these things are there, and they're not bad because they put it into a familiar place where you it's not that you predict what happens in the story, but things just make sense as it goes. And I think that's what's been missing from a lot of what we've seen out there lately. How did you think the movie flowed start to end? Am I wrong on that? Or did you think it just narratively, it made sense? They had setups and payoffs and through lines that worked out.
My biggest thing is when a story's done right in a movie theater, you don't feel the time.
Right.
I had no idea it was 2 hours and 14 minutes
Agreed.
runtime. It did not feel it. The movie just flowed, and
Agreed.
it just kept you engaged. It kept you in, and that's one of the things I really appreciated, because your time's valuable. It's one resource you will not get any more of.
Yep.
So don't waste it, and they did not. And like I said, it didn't feel like 2 hours and 14 minutes in that chair. Like, it was really well done. I enjoyed it. I'm just going to stick with that. I was very happy about how it came out. I know a lot of people were skeptical when it was coming out. A lot of bad press to begin with about
I was just going to bring this up.
Wokeness and downplaying male characters, which I didn't see any of that. I thought it was greatly played. It played great into a team dynamic, is how it should play as well, because that is the game. The game is a team dynamic, how would you say this? Cooperative narrated storytelling game. Yep. And that's exactly what it is. Not one person's going to be the hero always, and it doesn't matter what gender they are. It just matters that they play and have fun.
I think you touched on a couple of important points with that, and I'm glad we're going to get this out of the way early, because this is the only thing I think, if there's a negative thing to say here, it's exactly that. I think we can file this movie squarely under, if only you dipshit writers and directors kept your mouth shut about your kind of what your motivation was for the film or what your intention was about the film, especially if it aligns with those kind of corporate interests about being air quoted woke or left leaning or progressive. Say that after the movie and let people just see it for its own edification, its own well-being. Because I agree with you 100%. I made a video a month or two ago when we saw that first trailer, and then we were right around the time we saw the article come out, and the headline was, our writers like to emasculate male characters. We think it's fresh, it's funny, it's something not being done. And the Winter Wolf had to scratch his head for about 10 minutes while he read that article twice. I'm like, dude, have you not seen a movie in the last 10 years? All that we do is dump on male characters in these movies. But to your Kingsy's point here, you're exactly right. This was the kind of movie where, because it's based on a capital R role-playing game, Chris Pine's character as Edgin the Bard, he's not supposed to go out there and kick a bunch of ass. He's the Bard. No. He's the brains. He's the leader. He's the planner. You know, you can have Holga by Michelle Rodriguez playing the only character she ever plays, but still, that's what she's supposed to do. So when she goes ham on 12 armed guards, you're like, okay, the barbarian chick of the Elk tribe is supposed to do that. That adds up. Nobody cares. That works. But I'd like to point out, both times she did that, when she was about to get it from behind, Chris Pine saved her. Because it's a team effort. You know, her back is turned and the one guy's creeping up on her, and he's like, bink! You know, it takes the guy down with a brick to the face or whatever it was. You know, so they have that back and forth there, especially those two. I thought they were great. I thought those two characters
had great chemistry together as a team.
Yep.
And I mean, that's one of the things in one of the characters in D&D, one of the classes, Rogue. One of the things is that they are not a frontline character.
Right.
They're a damage dealer. They stay behind the lines, and they have their biggest thing is sneak attack.
Yep.
Is where they get to, if you're engaged with someone else or they don't see you get attacked, you get bonus money. Yep. Yeah, it's backstab in a video game, but in D&D it's called sneak attack.
Yep. I like that he played even less of that role, and he was playing the more traditional the bard thing where like he breaks the lute out a couple of times. So I thought one of them was very endearing. Don't get me wrong. We'll touch on how the movie ends, you know, later in the show. I thought that was a strong point, but I like the fact that he's not throwing hands, and when the tiefling chick shows up, she's not throwing a lot of hands, and the sorcerer wizard young guy, he's never throwing hands. And the only body that gets into the combat besides Holga, Michelle Rodriguez, is the paladin, who's supposed to throw hands. He's the hammer of his deity. Like that's what he does. You know. So I mean, all the puzzle pieces fit character wise, and I like that. It worked. It really did.
Yeah, it worked well.
Yep.
The people who did this understood D&D, and that's the best part of it.
Yeah, which is why I said it. I wish they had just, if that stupid article had never come out for their stupid hate clicks about we emasculated male characters. Like, dude, I'm racking my brain to find the emasculated male character. They all come across as, the heroes anyway, come across as good. Holga's halfling husband laid the smackdown on her. I mean, he's soft voiced, but like he basically told her, no, like this is what happened, so I had to leave, and like you're kind of the a-hole. So I mean, the only person that doesn't come across well was Forge. Well, what's the Hugh Grant character? That was Forge, right? That was his name.
But he played his perfect.
That's what I'm saying. He played the weaseling con man, dickhead character. So he wasn't supposed to come across as good or as frontline or as alpha or whatever the verbiage we're using nowadays is. It made sense. I liked it. There's nothing. I would have to challenge somebody that actually saw it in good faith to show me the woke moment that wherein that happened. You know, when did Holga get the best of Chris Pine's character ever, and he didn't have a retort? Never. You know, I didn't get that was any kind of putting him down to pump her up ever in any scene.
Yeah.
You know, I just didn't see that at all. Let me ask you this, because I know you're bigger in the game scene there. Did this movie's plot borrow anything besides, monsters and things like that? Was the plot story itself, like the heist on Neverwinter, is that a core campaign at all, like in print or anything like that? I mean, the Neverwinter is a pretty big setting. I mean,
a heist is a huge thing in D&D in general. I mean, they even have one called The Heist of Waterdeep.
Yeah, I've seen that book before, the hardcover. Yeah,
but none of this has actually been taken from any campaign that I've known.
Cool.
They
so
just took
original.
They took the setting and then just came up with their own story in the setting.
Nice.
Now they dropped a lot of classic D&D names like Neverwinter, and
Icewind
Waterdeep,
Dale.
the Sword Coast, all that big area.
I love that. The map at the beginning was awesome, dude. I wish I could have paused that and rewound it a couple times, freeze framed it. That was cool to see some of those things, definitely. So yeah, they lifted that. What did you? Let's stick on story for a few while we're just kind of working out the overalls. Too simple, just about right for a 2-hour popcorn movie. Should it have been more complex?
No, I think it was great. It was started off with them in prison. You get the backstory,
I thought that was funny.
That was masterfully done. Like,
Yeah.
are you sure Jason's not going to be here?
And then when and spoilers, guys, because this has been out for a month and whatever, and like he gets there and it's not even really so he can actually do the part, it's so they can throw him out a window because he's got wings and they were gonna just glide down with it. That was hilarious. And then the bookend at the end of the movie, where Forge tries the same thing, but like when he hits the window, they bricked it. Those two, dude, that it got like a legit. I can't remember the last time I was in a movie and actually it got me to chuckle. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad I gave you my $15 today. That's all I wanted, was to give you $15 and enjoy myself. So story wise though, that's the beginning. That was good. Keep it moving.
Yep, and then it came to the point of pretty much where it was like, what is going to be their mission, and their acceptance of the mission, which was him getting his daughter back.
Yep.
Which was huge. He gets there and he realized that she's been poisoned against him, which is him accepting the mission of getting her back and getting that scroll, with the whole reason they took the heist that got him in prison anyways, done. And then it's just the fun and games of them accomplishing the main mission, and then you get into the main story beats where they get back to Neverwinter to get the daughter. They have everything in place. So it was a good thing.
I think there's so much to unpack in that brief overview too, and that's how I know this was a, like you said, man, this isn't going to win any awards, and it's too bad, because if they should just have a fun award, and I would give it to a movie like this. This movie reminded me in a lot of ways of Willow. You know what I mean? Willow back in the day, just in terms of, dude, I sat down, it threw some monsters at me, it threw some swordsmen at me, it threw some magic at me, it threw some, halfling and other kind of D&D familiar kind of faces and races, and I like that. What I enjoyed most about it, like we were talking about story beats before, is it followed the template that people, if you've come up in the 70s and 80s and the 90s in movies, we know it starts with the core people. They have to get the objective, but then they have to build the team, which they did. You know what I mean? They had to add 2 people and a temporary hired gun and the paladin just for that one side quest. They do the side quest in Act 2. That's the thing you have to do. Like, that's part of any fantasy kind of thing. It's like there's almost always, unless it's something political, like, Game of Thrones is super political, and the warring factions and the division of power and how that all works. But that's different. That's not.
Plus, that was a series. It wasn't a movie.
Right.
So they have more time to hammer out.
But I'm saying it was telling a different story that wasn't as adventure as it was a world building in progress kind of thing. Your other fantasy books always typically have the MacGuffin. We have to get the sword from the stone. We have to find the wizard's helmet. We have to, get the gem that's going to let us get heat resistance so we can resist the dragon's breath. Like, that's just how these things work. And I don't care if it's tropey or cliched. It's fun when it's done right. And because this cast of characters was so effing hilarious together, every time they somebody stops talking and someone throws in the one-liner about why that won't work or why that's bad, I thought that was funny. And so it works when we're like, oh, we have to go to the Underdark, which is full of things that want to kill us. Probably not the place we want to go. Like, okay, this is actually just kind of funny. But it never...
Who hides something in the Underdark? Well,
this
haven't found it, have they?
Well, it's the perfect place to hide it. No, there's nobody that values their life would go there. You know what I mean? But it all worked because you could see the motivation of having it be presented that way. It was to keep you not bored by throwing a bunch of like these and thous and Tolkien level kind of dialogue at you. It wasn't supposed to be that. It was supposed to be kind of fast and fluid and keep you engaged in what's going on in your 2-hour runtime. And I thought that really worked. I thought all that stuff works to me. And then just for the story beat discussion, they run into their troubles in the Underdark, but they use some quick thinking and creative escape techniques, to get away from the fat dragon, which was hilarious. Dude, I thought that was some of the funniest shit I'd ever seen. I'm sorry.
That was definitely a great curveball of seeing the fat dragon just sitting there living with his gold.
Dude, he fat dragoned so hard that like his way to catch up to them to kill them was to roll. Like he barrel rolled down the hill to get them. And when he gets to the bottom, it shifts up like this. Oh, dude, it was too funny. I like that. And I said to myself, I like, dude, that is one chubby ass dragon. And then one of the characters said it, and I was like, yeah, I fucking said that. Like, it is. So it was played for a joke in world. It wasn't like when Godzilla came out and everybody was like, why is Godzilla fat? Like, no. This dragon was fat, and it was funny because everybody else knew it. They were all in on the joke, And I feel like that's it's been missing for so long, just having a good time and not having to like second guess motivations that come up scene to scene, frame to frame, hour to hour, and then sometimes the bad jokes kind of outlive their welcome. And I felt like nothing lingered here, like the joke was made, people laughed, and we moved on to the next thing,
Yeah.
What did you think of the Paladin character in and Out? Because I was kind of hoping he was in it for the long haul, but maybe he served his purpose, and that was the point.
Yeah, and then you saw him, there towards the end, finishing up what he had to finish up. Which,
serving the justice.
Yeah, and the thing was that he also fit the story because he was one of the people that was going to get converted into the living monster magic people. Was it some type of undead?
Yep.
The red witches, as they call, or the red wizards, as they call them.
Red wizards, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he was actually partially touched from that, which I mean,
he had the mark. He had like the partial beginning of the mark,
but he wasn't a full-on creature yet.
I just thought his role
that was great.
Yeah. Can we talk about, just because we're on the Paladin? Yeah, go finish. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead.
I was saying, like, he looked good. His motivation was there. He was exactly who he's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Like, he wasn't a paladin that, oh, by the way, he does bad stuff on the side.
Right.
No, he was pure of heart. This is what he does.
Not morally gray. No, he's Michael Carpenter.
And like his whole thing was driven because of what happened to his people, his parents, which is, I mean, a great story for a paladin. Yeah.
That's what I mean, dude. I feel like these characters in a 2-hour movie, when they're written by professionals, and dude, maybe that's just what it comes down to, is when things are written by professionals, right? People that understand story structure, you can take side characters that are only in there for 15 to 20 minutes and actually give them meaningful through lines that connect backstory to outcome, and your movie's the better for it because it feels more authentic. It feels more structurally sound. It's like tapping the tires and just knowing the car is ready to go, because each one of those characters had a backstory altogether. We know the Bard's backstory. We know Holga's backstory. She's kicked out of the tribe for marrying somebody out of the tribe, and then regrets that decision because that relationship. I mean, they cover all those bases. The Tiefling chick, abandoned by her kind, taken in by somebody else. I don't remember what the wizard's backstory was. Did they ever really get into his?
They never really got into the sorcerer at all.
His thing more is that he lacked the confidence to do the great magic that he was capable, but his backstory was never really hammered, right?
And he was a specific type of sorcerer, which is in gameplay. He's a wilder.
Yep.
Meaning he has wild magic. Yep. So sorcerer usually comes from one of the two: either you're wild magic, which can technically kill you if you roll wrong, or you're from dragon touched, from a dragon blood type descendant. Mm-hmm. So those are the two ancestral type sorcerers, and they went with the wildling with him. So that was really good.
That was a nice touch, but they didn't talk about his lineage or his like I was captured and enslaved, or I ran away from my family when they found out I had magic and blah blah blah. They didn't get into that. His thing really focused, but it was good because they took that his hang up wasn't his backstory. It was that self-imposed limitation about what he could do, and then they made that a pivotal necessity to overcome for them to be successful in their job later. And not only was it successful later when he was able to attune to the helm and get all that done, it comes up again even later when he's dueling the evil boss, the head chick, at the end of the movie. And he was holding his own pretty good.
One of the great things I love about the gameplay assets in this, like when you're a level 7 and you get counterspell, you're not disrupting a level 9 type spell because you're just getting it. Yeah. You have to level up. You have to be able to, because how a counterspell works in the game, if I cast a level 3 spell, I can cast counterspell at, I think it's level 7, and it automatically disrupts it.
Right.
Let's say if I cast or I think it's a 5th level spell. I really do. I think it's the 5th level spell now that I'm thinking about it. It's a
the short of it is you can't punch up and dispel somebody outside your weight class. Is how the rule works.
You have to do like a special roll,
right?
Unless you cast it at the same level. Like say I'm casting teleport, which is the 9th level spell. I can use one of my 9th level spell slots to cast counterspell at 9th level, meaning I can disrupt that without a roll.
True.
And that was a game mechanic that was in the movie. I mean, it's hard to get game mechanics into a movie as it is, especially because of how complex some of the rules are in D&D. It got a lot easier with 5e and now the D&D 1. They really made it more mainstream, easier to add in more people who don't have advanced math degrees.
Well,
like the very first edition where you had to do 7 times of math just to walk down the street.
Oh, the arithmetic just to figure out if you could actually hit something was bonkers back in the day. I remember that firsthand. Yes. But no, I appreciated definitely the inclusion, like we were just talking about, like the backstories coming through and all of these things being resolved, because they all had this place where they added in. Like Chris Pine tells Holga, hey, maybe we shouldn't go visit your ex on the way. It's kind of out of the way, and do you really want to put yourself through that? But if they didn't do that, if she didn't put herself in the uncomfortable position to seek out closure and to go get her things and this and that, the husband wouldn't have given her the walking stick, which turned out to be something they needed. And it's a little Deus Ex.
I forgot the type of
hither, thither, something like that. Something like that.
Pretty much they played Portal.
It was a Portal ROM. So it's a little Deus Ex that it worked out that way, but it's like at least it had some significance. And it wasn't just some shit that they picked up off the ground that was there when they needed it to. It was something that they were already in possession of, and they just took back, you know? So like, I didn't even really mind that, you know? I just think those kind of contrivances, when you earn them, they don't bother me. Like when we see some of these stupid fucking things come up in some of the Disney Star Wars shit, I'm like, you didn't earn that. You don't get to just have that. Like they put this item into a story. It had sentimental value to the person that owned it, to the person that it was given to, and then it had a practical value to the person that received it down the line. You know what I mean? So it's like it tracks. It's okay to have those things when it's earned, but so many times, dude, it's just not earned at all. Like if we want to fast forward to the ending real quick, and we'll do our jump back because there's stuff in the middle to talk about. Especially with the villain, who I thought was kind of Marvel level creepy, like probably not the best Marvel villain, but like in the running. But when they jump to the ending and they defeat her, it's because it's a combination of all their abilities, right? We got the shapeshifter doing owl bear shit, which was awesome. And when she finally lays the smackdown on this chick at the end, it reminded me of Hulk Loki in the original Avengers, just like boom, 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 and then I don't think she's dead. Boom, boom, boom. And then fucking throw her against the wall 4 stories up. And then shit fell on her. Do you remember that? That was even better. It was like a laugh a second, that whole scene. My theater was cracking up. But it was a team effort to get it all there. She had to do the shape-shifting thing. Holga had to fight her gargoyle thing that came to life to a standstill. There's all kinds of everybody involved. And it looks like Chris Pine's done nothing. But when they were making their way to that final showdown, he took the jailer's keys off the wall, gave it to the wizard. They got the magic cuff off. Chris Pine was in possession of the magic suppressing cuff, and then when he told his daughter to use the invisibility pendant to not be seen, gives her the cuff, and at the moment that everything is all lost and the wizard chick has done her time freezing thing again, Chicky daughter walks in and slaps the cuff on her and shuts the spell down. So I'm like, so everybody did their thing, and I'm like, perfect. It was his plan. The muscle chick did muscle shit. The owl bear shape-shifting chick did the crazy owl bear shit. The sorcerer dude held his own with the arm wrestling thing, and it was good. It was just good. Everybody did their thing, and I need that. That's what I want.
Yeah, the only negative I would say about Chris Pine's Bard character is that he didn't do any magic. A Bard character in the game is a magic wielder.
Yep, 100%.
That's the only thing that they did, but I think that would also OP'd what they were trying to do with him. Mm-hmm. So I think him not having it in the movie made sense. Yep. But it was the only nitpick I really had, because he didn't do anything magical as a Bard. Agreed.
I think they leaned him into more of the planning the Ocean's 11 thing kind of role, and not rely on the magical musical stuff that Bards had. You're 100% right. 100% right. Although, if we want to talk Bard magic, one could say, he had the magic of family in him, because it plays into the ending, and I thought it was, let's stick with ending for a minute. I thought it was one of the more touching endings I've seen in a long while, and they set this up well too, right?
Yeah.
tell us what happened in the ending, and then I'll go to my setup point after that.
You see, after the main fight, you see that Hilda gets hit by a weapon. Mm-hmm. It's a red mage sword, and they made the red mage sword in this a OP weapon that once you're hit by it,
and they set that up multiple times that they told us this. Yep, go ahead, keep going. You're on what I'm on. Go ahead.
So there's no healing, there's no breathing, or there's no healing they can do, no magical healing, no municipal healing. She's going to die. It's just going to happen. It's the same thing that happened to his wife. Yep. She died from the same thing. So the whole purpose of the original heist that really kicked off the whole adventure for them, which put Chris Pine and Hilda in prison, was he wanted to get this scroll that would bring people back to life. It was pretty much a resurrection scroll.
Stone. It was stone. It was a tablet thingy.
Yeah, but it's still considered a scroll because it has the magic on there. You still have to see the words on it.
Paper you had to roll up, no? Well, whatever. Who cares? Semantics. Continue.
The Ten Commandments was written on stone as well.
It's not a scroll, though. It's stone tablet. Anyway, whatever. They needed to steal a MacGuffin. They needed to steal a widget.
Yeah.
The widget of resurrection. Or awakening, whatever they call it.
Any type of magical item like this in D&D, most of them only have one use unless they're a charge-based system, which most scrolls are one and done.
Yep.
Or you can transpose and put in your book if you're a wizard, which is a totally different character, which we didn't even have.
This was definitely a one-off. They framed it that way super early.
Yep, so once you use it, it's done. So you don't use it once. And then he goes through and he was planning on using it on his wife and have his daughter meet her mother for the first time because she was killed when she was a baby.
Yep.
And then then there's a point where you realize that he was doing that for her and he was doing it for him and he wasn't doing it for his daughter. Yep. And realized that Hilda was more of a mother figure to her than her mother was. And that's mostly because her mother died, which is a great reason for not being in the picture, dying. Mm-hmm. But he used it on her after she died from the red wizard sword, and then she was even like, "Did you use that on me?"
It was so funny. It was so touching and funny at the same time. Oh Jesus, you used it on me, didn't you? She says you wasted it on me. Even better.
Yeah.
Dude, it was. Oh man, dude, I thought that was so good. I didn't care if it was cheesy. I didn't care. Don't care.
Sometimes families are the ones that are around you, not the ones that are with you.
Yep. See, now, I want to break this scene down, right? Because so much of this only works because they set so much of this up, right? We knew that
they did.
All of it. Like you said, the reason they're on this mission is because the original mission got Edgin's wife killed. This mission, to get his daughter back, got Helga killed, right? In a way. Got her killed.
No. The original mission didn't get his wife killed. His wife was killed because he stole gold from the red.
Right.
When he was when he was.
Let me rephrase. His original actions got her killed. His actions later get his best friend and pseudo sister killed. Right. So there's just a parallel. Right. His decisions are not good at this point. Right. They set up that the red mage's blade, like you said, cannot be undone by healing magic, right? They set up several times in the movie that magic isn't the answer. Like the sorcerer's magic that their guy in their party had is not the answer to all their problems. So there's nothing he can do. So that is connected to that. So we know there's limitations here. What was the other? Like the part where you explained they set up a flashback where Chris Pine's character comes to realize his daughter never knew her mother. Her biological mother. She knew Holga. And all throughout the movie, we see this. The daughter goes to her. Holga's got a nickname for the kid. She called her Bug. It's a legitimately like a touching, appropriate, and very genuine relationship that they had, right? And they even go so far as to put the icing on the setup cake. They put the blue dragonfly in the original flashback with Chris Pine and his wife when they're hiding from it for whatever reason in their house. And then a couple of times throughout the film, the blue dragonfly just returns. It's on a post somewhere. It's on a tree. And then they have the final flashback where the wife says, "Sometimes you can't catch things. You have to let them go." A little on the nose, but it's effective for this kind of movie. So he has that final realization, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I probably should bring back, this one instead of the woman I lost. It was just good. It's so many of those things are just set up early and they have payoff at the end, and that's all I fucking want out of anything I want. I just want shit to make sense and kind of tie loopholes and leave a little room open for interpretation, but tie off the main beats, and that was one of them.
Yep.
I got no problem with that at all.
That was the one thing that they also hint at, and it's also in the game. Like, magic doesn't solve everything.
Right. Dude, that's good fiction everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, usually magic causes more issues than in anything.
Dude,
and usually
looking at you, Dresden Files, right? Dude, is that not a thing that you have to learn in the Dresden Files early and often? Molly, you know? Yeah, it's that they hit everything right that they were trying to do, just in terms of those dynamics between the characters in the party. And I think they were kind of clever that they layered so many things on top of each other as they went. Like, let's talk bad guys for a minute, because we haven't done that yet. So we think the bad guy is Dippy Doo Hugh Grant. He's the con man's con man. Like, he put the backstab on them. He brought them to the Harper's vault because he was just going to do Hugh Grant stuff there, and got the team either captured or killed. But he basically lied to them and told them, actually, I guess he didn't lie, because it really was a tablet of resurrection or whatever. It actually worked. Yeah. I mean, so he was honest about that, but he got him caught.
Yeah, he got him caught. He was there, and the whole purpose was to take them out of the picture, and so for the Red Witch to get what she needed.
Right. She needed the horn. Right. She needed the red horn. Right. So we go through the whole movie thinking Hugh Grant's character is like big boss Scrappy Doo and running the show, because when they get busted out of jail, they find out that somehow he's now the Lord of Neverwinter, which is a massive shock and surprise to them when they get there. But as it kind of progresses, he loses the veneer real quick that he was surprised that they got caught or this or that. When they show up to his castle in Neverwinter, and he's like, yeah, no, you can't have your daughter back. And no, he's been lying to you, dutiful daughter. They just were here for the money. They were already gone. And this and that. Further poisoning the daughter against Chris Pine. So this dude's, he's a bastard without a doubt, But he's comical.
The scroll that he was after was a scroll of riches and not a scroll.
Right. Oh, no, he laid it on thick. He definitely laid on the lie. Real thick. They're like, oh, no, Dad sold you out for a couple of gold coins. You know what I mean? But we get the progression, because as we get the tie into the backstory of the villain, we realize that the sorceress that Hugh Grant's character has working for him is not really working for him. She's actually in charge. Yeah. She's big bad, right? He's just a face
Hugh
for.
Grant was just there for,
right.
Yeah, he was the face.
He's the face because red mages are. They're locked up on site, or they're frowned upon in anywhere outside of their home country of Thayen or whatever it was. So she basically has to disguise herself and keep a hood up and maintain a low profile. But we find out that she's the big bad, and she's trying to reenact the mass scale weapon of mass destruction, soul sucking spell that we got in the backstory about the original red mage that the horn belonged to, and it's a lot of the backstory. Cool flashback. It was very cool visually with the red tendrils and the smoke. I was definitely digging that. And I thought again that this was a clever setup. The plan that he put together, that they hatched together, him and Big Bad Sorceress, was you become Lord of Neverwinter, reinstate. Sorry, I don't know how I couldn't speak English for a second. Reinstate their version of the Olympics or whatever they called them, the High Sun Games or whatever, which would bring 100,000 people into the arena, so she could do the red spell of death and transfer like 100,000 souls, like her boss did 1,000 years ago, whichever. So I mean, it all tied in. When it happened, I was like, okay, that's supposed to happen. Like, it makes sense.
And then he was supposed to be able to get away with all the
money
that they brought
right,
in.
Right. Because that was his end of the thing, is if we reinstitute the games, we can bring in the 1%ers and all their money. I'll keep it all in the secure vault, and I'll tell them that it's all locked up with super magic vault spell, and they'll all be like, yay, take all my money. But meanwhile, we're unloading it out the back door, which was hilarious when they showed that. I'm like, oh, all right, so it's a heist with it. It's another heist. Okay. I like that. It's kind of fun. So, dude, I was just digging how that all worked. Like, it just, the story just works. It's nothing special. I mean, between the two of us, we've probably read 100,000 of these books, D&D or not D&D, and we've seen every single one of these ideas.
100,000 hours of it.
This is what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing new here, and that doesn't matter if the performances and the writing are good. When Holga and Chris Pine have their brother sister butt head thing, it's good. You can you can feel friendship in that. When super not confident sorcerer dude is trying to run his game on Tiefling Chick again, she freezes him out at first, but she softens at the end and like, okay, so that's, but she never insulted him and put him down. Like, she never dragged him down hard. She turned him down early on. I was like, you know, maybe not being confident's not the cutest thing in a guy. And he has some self-deprecating shit, but like, that's people. That's how people are, you know? So it all just, it felt authentic to me. And I know I use that word a lot, but it's because it doesn't come up a lot in the shit we watch. It really just doesn't. You know, those felt like real characters to me. Like, I got them on their level. Like, I met them where they were, as we say in hippy dippy healthcare. I met the patient where they were. You know, and it was fun to watch them do their thing.
And then the other part that I found fun was the game mechanics that they had in there that they actually talked about. Yep. Like attuning to the helmet. Yep. That is something you actually have to do with certain magical items. Now, and they are also doing it, he started doing it while they were at camp. And in the game, you have to attune during a long rest. It's the only time you can attune, which means you have to rest for 6 or more hours. Right. And they stated that. He's like, well, we better do it quick because we're leaving in 6 hours.
You got 6 hours.
Which is a perfect time for a
dude,
long
tell me you
rest.
didn't. So, you got your clap on when he did that, and there's no doubt you didn't. You're like,
I'm like,
he said it.
Yeah, long rest. And then the speak with the dead. It is a... I believe it's a cantrip spell, but he said he had an artifact that does it as well.
He said he did. He said he had a coin or a token or something. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a true spell in D&D where you have to ask them 5 questions and then they can never be risen again. And the first guy that they brought up was just classic comedy gold.
Do you understand?
Did you fight in battle? Why did you or at the end he's like, so that's only 4 questions, okay? He's like, you only talked when I talked to you, okay? He's like, okay.
Why'd you say okay?
Like, why did you add okay at the end? You made it a question.
Yeah, I thought they played that to really good effect, having to go through like multiple bodies, and then each multiple body had like a semi not related thing they did. Like the one guy fell out of the tub and didn't really fight in the battle, but everybody thought he did. So that was like, it was like the trail goes a little cold. So again, if you sit down and you hammer out these beats and these details, like you can have your funny, but it's like they didn't, like, to your point, this dude wasn't trying to attune to the helmet in the middle of the last battle and then pull it off because the story dictated that it had to work then. He had to try and get his ass kicked like 7 times that we saw, you know, over a span of 6 hours that we didn't see, for him to arrive at the point where he finally just got so frustrated with it. And as Chris Pine pointed out, your best stuff comes out when you're in danger. Like when he was at that point, like the illusion falls away from him and he sees that it's just himself holding himself back, and he punched the thing in the mouth, and like all of a sudden the fucking helmet works. Like, that's good. That's good. That works, you know? 100%. So I love when they do that kind of stuff. It makes sense when these things kind of, I mean, dude, it's a movie about dragons and magic and shit, but that doesn't mean things can't make sense. You know? We suspend the disbelief and we play in their world by their rules. And as long as there's rules, we're good.
Have a story where it tells a story and not, we wrote ourselves into a corner. How are we going to do this? Magic.
Poof!
And then boom.
Yep.
No, the magic that they used made sense.
Yep.
And one of the big ones was the druid. She was she did be a shapeshifter, which is a ability of a druid. Now she also has magic as well, and it's a limited, but one of the big things that druids do is they are shapeshifters, and that was what she did. She was a shapeshifter. And I mean, she used it to the advantage, like how they got the initial intel on how to get into the vault where they were supposed to be storing all the money. That's what they found out the spell, and then that led them to where they need the helmet, and then that led them to where they needed something else. I mean, it worked. Also, like, she just, you saw where she got injured, and then she went from the creature back to herself, which is also a game mechanic.
Oh, when the thing hit her shoulder.
Yeah. When you shapeshift into something, you have a certain amount of hit points as that creature, and then when that creature runs out, you turn back into your normal self. You can't go right back into a creature either. Right. You have, cooldown periods, stuff like that. And then, like, one of the big ones is like when the barbarian, when she took on like the 12 armed guys, like she was almost immune to like damage and stuff, which is a play of
battle
the
rage.
barbarian
Yeah.
when they rage.
Yeah.
And like you can't rage all the time. You get 5 times per long rest.
Yeah.
And like she used it sparingly as she did. So I mean, they used the mechanics of the game in the best way that they could to tell the story where it wasn't just something they needed at the time because, oh, we have nothing to put here. Well, let's just do this. No, it all played into each other
Right.
where it actually stayed true to the game as well as stayed true to telling a good story.
I mean, what I like most about watching them do those kind of things most of the time is what even when they're doing when they're doing their things in this movie anyway, they all got their asses kicked from time to time. Michelle Rodriguez didn't get out of these fights without taking a couple of punches and getting slammed up against a couple of walls. And I'll say this because one of the other notes I had down on the infamous iPad is that the choreography here, better and more logical than anything we've seen in Star Wars lately. Did you see this chick trying to punch dudes in the face with metal face helms? No. Like she was going for knees and feet and necks and guts where they were exposed. I followed this like a hawk when I was watching because I hate that so much since The Mandalorian. The only time she punched any dude in the face in that final battle when they were in the forge in the armory, she punched the one guy that had the open face helmet, just drilled him straight through to the nose. And I'm like, okay. Like that'd be the guy you'd punch in the face. You know who you don't punch in the face? The guy with the fucking visor down, it's covered in steel. You know, with your bare hand. When you're a human, because it's gonna break, you know.
Yeah.
So like logically, it just did that kind of stuff. Like if I have a nitpick at all, there were a couple of moments where I'm like, all right, well if this shapeshifter chick just turns into an owl bear, they're all safe. Like they can all just leave. You know, you just tear these 8 guards. You know, like they're chasing her out a hallway, right? And she's trying to switch from like the mouse into the fly into the eagle and this and that. I'm like, dude, just turn into the owl bear, kill these 6 dudes, and turn back into a chick. That's it. Like this whole part of the movie's done. And then it was all related to this chick, the nitpick. So she does all that stuff in the castle, jumps out, they're shooting arrows at her, she turns into an eagle or a hawk or whatever it was, gets down to the ground, she's leaving on foot for a little bit, and the Red Queen sorceress happens to be right where she is. Dude, she had to be 3 miles away from that point. And she just happened to walk out of an intersection, and she was right there. I'm like, come on. I'll give you one because I've enjoyed the ride so far, but there's no way this chick goes from like Rapunzel's tower down here in like, you know, Flea Bottom from Game of Thrones in like the 3 minutes. This chick took the straight path via flight to get down there. This chick showed up on horseback.
She was a red wizard.
She rode a horse.
That's all I just say.
She rode a horse with her guys. She had guys with her. She didn't red wizard them all down there, but you know what I mean. But this is what I mean, dude. Like when you've built up currency and good faith with me as the viewer, I can be like, okay, I'll complain about it, but I'll be funny about it. You know what I mean? Like I won't hate it. It won't ruin my enjoyment of it because it was still good. It was still funny. You know?
Yeah.
It was vibing on that 100%. But I feel remiss. We would be remiss if we didn't at least discuss the High Sun Games for the visuals there. Because I got a lot of bang for my buck out of that part. Which tell our people what basically happened. There's a lot going on there action-wise. Good stuff.
So you have 2 big dark moments in this where you feel like everything's gonna fail, and this was one of them. Because they all are like they're about to break into the vault, and they break into one vault, and they use the teleport to get into the other vault, and they realize that there's 2 different vaults. They're not the same place. And like all the gold is underneath the stadium, and then like they break into the other vault, and then they all get taken out. They all get captured.
Yep.
The whole heist team. The Paladin's already gone by this point as well, because he wasn't going to be part of the heist.
Yep. He was just there for Act 2, right?
Yeah. And then the very end part where he came out and laid the justice down.
That was awesome. One line.
Yeah. But then he talks them into letting them stay and go into the games. Because, of course, Chris Pine, the always planner, always trying to be one step ahead, playing chess while everyone else playing checkers, talks them into being into the game because it gave them a reprieve a little bit. Now, they couldn't use their magic because they were restrained by magic restrained bracelets. And in every type of fantasy, there's always something that blots magic.
Yep.
Even the Jedi have animals that block the force.
We mentioned that last week. Yep, you're right.
Yep. So they had magic restraint bracelets, and the thing was to be the last to survive.
Tell people what
to a point.
Tell people what the game what the
in.
game is. Yeah, tell everybody what the game is. Like what the that it's mentioned in the game. It's mentioned in the movie as having it's hyper violent. It's really dangerous. That's why it was banned originally by the acting Lord of Neverwinter. It's like we're led to think it's a gladiatorial situation, right? That's how I envisioned it. But then they clarify.
It's more like if you want to go biblical, it's the lions and the Christians type setting. You're thrown into a arena that has falling pillars, like a Hunger Games type feel.
Maze Runner. It basically becomes Maze Runner or Labyrinth. It's more like a Minotaur analogy.
It's like a big hedge maze.
Yep.
There's also, but you have loot crates in there as well to help you survive.
Assuming you find the right one, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and then they released the creatures. Now, I can't remember, and I didn't look it up. I should have looked up the creatures.
The panther thing?
Right there.
Displacer Beast, one of my favorites.
Displacer Beast,
okay. One of my favorites all time. Loved it. Awesome. They used its abilities right also. Loved it.
They also got the gelatinous cube in
Loved it.
Well, which, it wouldn't be a D&D movie unless you had a gelatinous cube in there.
Dude,
use them.
That's the only one they didn't show. I think they didn't show that one in the trailer because I knew the Displacer Beast. I knew they had the not the Intellect Devourers. That was a surprise too. That was pretty cool. The brains on legs. Thought that was kind of cool. The Owlbear. Those are the two, and the Mimic. Those were the three big ones that they kind of blew in the trailer. But so when the Blob showed up, I was like, yes, nice, and it worked. It worked exactly like it should.
And you just said mimic, which is something that mimics a inanimate object, in which they hid in there as crates.
Yep.
Which they're very dangerous creatures. I mean, they're pretty hard to beat.
Fact.
So
these guys are running through a maze to the cage. Yep,
to get to a cage, which is supposed to keep you safe from the creatures, but they just and they pointed this out in the dialogue. It's like they're just trying to keep you going until you die.
Right.
So they timed the pillars to fall and went down with the pillars, which was a great escape. Yep. And then they used the gelatinous cube to escape as well.
That's how because they jumped into one and its pillar went down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then the shapeshifter chick turned into a snake, got out, pulled Holga out, and then they both pulled the other two out.
Yeah.
Because they knew they only had like a minute because they were going to get dissolved. Because they show us the blob dissolving someone. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah. And then that's also how they got the restrainer thing off because it stayed tight and he's dissolving, so his arm is actually narrower when they pulled him out.
Yep.
So that's how they got their magic resistant bracelets off. So
that's how they got the shapeshifter chick's one off. She slipped hers. Yeah. They still had to use the key that Chris Pine took from when they were escaping out the treasure tunnel. He said, "Here, try these on your cuff and see if it works." So they still needed to unlock that one. She slipped hers by being thinner, like you said.
Yeah.
So it was a good escape for sure. I'm like, dude, that's creative. I like that. It was a creative as escape as when they were stuck in Fat Dragon Tunnel. The water starts coming in, right? And he's like, oh, it's salt water. He's thinking, and he knows the dragon's. He's got to throw the gas out first before it ignites. So he uses the one stupid spell that he can do reliably to like set off a bomb. You know what I mean? That just blows their way to the. It's just like, I'm like, okay, good. Like somebody actually applied some creative process here. It's all absurd. All of it. Like you die, but that's the point. The good guys are supposed to do absurd shit that doesn't kill them. And when you earn it, you don't care that it was absurd. Dude, I loved it, man. I thought that was all good stuff.
It was another really good part too. It wasn't CGI heavy. Of course, the magic are going to be CGI. Oh, yeah. Some of the bad guys are going to be CGI.
Yep.
But it wasn't CGI settings. Nope. It wasn't CGI them walking in front of screens the whole time. It was shot on location, great art director, great set design, which I have their names.
Yep.
Like Susanna Brout, which I brought her up earlier. And then you have Amanda Monk, who was costumes. And they shot in Northern Ireland and Iceland.
Look great.
Great. It looked great.
Yep. I'm glad you brought up artwork because I think that was one of my other small nitpicks. Some of the non-human NPCs didn't do it for me. The bird thing from the beginning, Jonathan, was okay.
Jonathan.
Yeah, was all right. The dragon thing that was on the council, the parole board, I was like, I don't know.
Dragonborn.
Whatever it was. So it's like there was that. And then when we meet the paladin, he was pulling like a, whatever the cat race is, he's pulling a cat baby out of the mouth of a giant fish that got caught and giving it back to cat humanoid mom. I'm like, okay, this is okay. But I just remember thinking there were a couple of those kind of spots where non-human shit was around. And I was like, this is probably the weaker. But again, it's like watching, Star Trek original series. When you like what's going on, do you care if one dude's half white and half black, and then the other guy is half black, half white? Like, no, it's just what you have.
Yeah. And with the CGI and stuff like that, it was done by ILM. ILM was the heavy lifters on that.
Oh, which is why the things like the dragon fight and the undead stuff all were amazing. You know what I mean? No qualms to pick there. I mean, the paladin combat with the guy with the green sword. I wish there was more of him, because he reminds me of a character that I wrote in one of my books with the flaming green sword. That was cool. I like how the paladin lit his sword with the yellow rune just kind of spraying the light. I'm like, dude, he's got Amarakius from Dresden Files. That's it. He's legit Michael Carpenter. Like, that's who this guy is, without a doubt. It's a crossover. It's a mashup. He was Sonya.
Yeah,
he just had the wrong sword.
I believe it's called Eldridge Sword. It
was awesome.
Spell. You also saw him use lay hands on, which is a healing thing that paladins do. They have a certain pool of hit points that they can give to someone by putting their hands on them and giving it hit points.
He was a good character.
I saw him do that.
I liked him. I liked his way of speaking. It was just it seemed perfect for that kind of role, juxtaposed against Chris Pine. Like Chris Pine just being like the blue collar, like workaday scoundrel kind of guy, and like this guy's just, he's above all the muck. You know what I mean? Like when he's walking away, he's like, oh, there's a boulder in front of him, and he can't walk a straight line now. Whoop, up and over the boulder. Didn't stop him. Didn't deviate. So that was just kind of, it was funny and fitting.
Chris Pine was like, he was just trying to do a little hate on him.
That's what I mean. Because you're really good at everything except talking to people. He's like, I liked earlier there was a part of the paladin guy is kind of breaking him down or whatnot. He's like, does somebody else want to come up here and ride next to this guy? It was just funny. Like they were just like one off. I don't know how much of it was ad-libbed or not, but like it was actually funny just to see them work with each other and have those kind of like that banter back and forth and just bounce those kind of lines off. Because basically the paladin does paladin things for Chris Pine's character too, where he puts him kind of semi back on the path of his faith kind of thing, or he gave him the harper. It's not a Bible, I don't remember. It's their book, their code.
It's book. Like their code.
Right. That was the only moment in the movie where it's like things are getting all reverential. He's like, here, put your hand on this. Then he gives it to him, and he's like, here, take this with you. Even if you don't believe in it, it believes in you. And Chris Pine's like, okay. And then he throws it across the table and says, here, carry this shit. And I was like, that was funny because I felt like there was a joke coming because you knew it was Chris Pine. Like it's his character who's made 6 jokes leading into that. But the other moments where he's building up people didn't come across with jokes after the fact, so it all meant something.
Yeah, it was also a mechanic for like a badge of holding. Like you always have one person who has your haversack or your badge of holding. Like here, carry this.
Yep.
Because you don't want to carry it.
Right.
You try and carry so much weight.
Right. They just thought that's good. It's good when they have some leeway to just be funny. Read the room. Know when there's supposed to be a joke. Don't leave it to an algorithm or some dickhead executive somewhere else to be like, we need a joke every 7.63 minutes to make sure people are still engaged. You don't need that. The medium does not require you to apply a spreadsheet to make this successful. I'm looking at you, Phase 4 Marvel. There's a reason all the movies in this bracket suck. They're exactly the same. Their characters are interchangeable. The humor is indistinguishable one film from the next. And none of it's earned. None of it. Not a fucking moment of it. And I'm glad people are waking up to that recently. But, dude, we're going big overtime on Dungeons & Dragons. Why don't we do you want to throw scores at this one? Or is it just kind of obvious we both liked it and are going to give it a high 4 out of 5?
Yeah, it's trying to get a high score, but I do want to go over the scores that are on other rating sites because, usually movies, if we like them, critics hate them.
Yep.
But first, I went over to Rotten Tomatoes, which is it has both the credit and the audience score.
Yep.
But both of them were in the 90s.
Oh, get
It
out
was
of here.
certified fresh. And
Shocked.
the audience gave it a 93. So, I mean, people are enjoying it who are going to see it. Now, not many people are going to see it. One, it's a very niche market.
Yeah.
Even though D&D has gone more into the mainstream, especially with stuff like Critical Role having their their Twitch stream, which has gone, completely viral.
Yeah, it's massive.
And they also have their own animated series. They have their second animated series coming out for their second campaign. They had it for the first campaign. Now they have one for their second campaign coming out, The Mighty Nine. Not many people have gone to see it, but the people who have and who have rated it on Rotten Tomato are enjoying it. The critics enjoying it. There's a few I went through and read those, and it was mostly people who are looking for war and peace in every movie. And you're not going to get that in every movie. Some movies you just want to go lose yourself for 2 hours and then be told a story and have fun and just enjoy it. The other part was I went over to IMDb ratings, which is mostly all just registered people with IMDb, has given a 7.6 out of 10.
That's fair.
So I think it's a fair score. One, it's not for everybody. It's an adventure story. Not everyone gets that. It's D&D, which I said was already very niche. But I believe it's a fair score, and I would put in the 8 to 9, which the 8 was the median score. So if you count them all up and you put it right in the middle, 8 was the middle. So, but the average score was 7.6 because you have 3 100s and 1 100. You have a 1 0.
Right.
You have a 75. So.
Right.
So I would give it up around that same place, right around that 8.
That's like solid 8 out of 10, sure. Yeah.
If I still bought physical media, I would have bought this movie. But I don't buy physical media because you pretty much stream any movie you want anymore. And if I can't find it there, I can always get it from the library for free. So,
yeah, good point. I think eight's super fair, man. Like you said, this isn't for me. It wouldn't have been one I'd buy either because I tend not to buy anything digital or not. Like I watch it once and then I'm done. There's a lot of other stuff out there to go and see, so it has to be like an all-timer for me. This wasn't that. But if this is when this comes to Netflix, HBO Max, I mean whoever, I don't remember who put this out. But when it makes an appearance, I'll watch it again. 100% I will. I'll throw it on. I've seen it. I don't have to sit there and study it. I'll put it on. I'll work on the computer, do something, So yeah, I think 8 out of 10 is fair. I think the criticism you gave it based on not the criticism you gave, the review about people looking for war and peace. I'm like, dude, there's war and peace, and then there's 15 billion other things that are also great. You know what I mean? And I think this doesn't need to be War and Peace. It doesn't need to be Fellowship of the Rings. It doesn't need to be A Song of Fire and Ice, anything like that. This movie did enough character work and held enough narrative structure throughout that when the payoffs came at the end and they had to have their obligatory emotional beat where he brought back Holga, I was invested in that, and I was happy to see that happen. And that's all I need out of a sword and sandal sorcery flick. That's all I need out of a Dungeons & Dragons thing is the good guys winning and doing good guy stuff.
It's also a good family flick where you can bring all ages to it. Even though it is PG-13, which I think for the violence, because there are sword fights and magic, it got the PG-13, but it's a good family flick. I mean, you have no gross nudity. You don't have grotesque violence. You have violence, but not grotesque violence.
But it's fantasy violence,
falling out,
though,
people
right?
losing their head. Yeah, it's fantasy violence, but it's also toned down. There's no heavy language in it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a good film that you could take your kids to, the whole family to, and enjoy yourself. Or when it comes out on a streaming service, or if you buy the physical media, to have a family night at home with some pizza and just chill and watch this movie. I highly recommend it. I don't give highly recommends to a lot of things. I do highly recommend this movie. It is amazing. Chris Pine is awesome. Michelle Rodriguez, as well as Michelle Rodriguez. Everyone else in it played their role perfectly. Hugh Grant played his character perfectly. I just love it. Dude. I love it.
I'll wrap up my final thoughts and say this about the cast, right? Everything you said is 100% true. Michelle Rodriguez was more likable in this role than anything I've ever seen her in before, ever. And the fact that she smiled when she was at her low moment and he starts playing the song and gets her to sing, I thought that was the most human thing I've ever seen her do on film. And I smiled when it happened too. I was like, oh, okay. And then when they play that song back as she's dying, boom, payoff. Like, that's how it's done. That's how it works. That's how effective storytelling happens. And I feel like it's almost a borderline lost art at this point, and that makes me sad. It makes me sad that people don't understand the creators don't understand these basic tenets of obvious storytelling truth. They really don't. They'll sit there and they'll scratch their heads and be like, well, why is that important, or why did that work? I'm like, really? Have you never watched a movie and got that on your own from anything you wanted in any other genre? You stupid shit. But no, I'm glad I had to eat a slice of humble pie and not see the woke boogeyman in this movie. 8 out of 10 at least. I'm sad that the box office return is generally as weak as it is, because I don't think this is going to really incentivize Hasbro or whoever their studio is to go ahead and just throw down another one. Chris Pine's probably too expensive.
I believe Paramount is the overall the big money in this.
Whoever it is, but it's
Wizards of the Coast is the owner of the intellectual property.
Those guys I hate. They're not incentivized. If they made 160 back on 130, they're not incentivized to drop another 130 plus marketing to do another big screen level picture. What we'll probably get now is what we got in the early 2000s, like when Jason Statham was making Dungeons and Dragons and The Name of the King, like those kind of sci-fi channel level Dungeons and Dragons movies. I think we'll sadly get a few of those now, is what we'll get.
There's also the Marlon Wayne's Dungeons and Dragons movies, which also was like an Honor Amongst Thieves type movie
I
too.
did not know that, and that sounds like something I would want to watch. So I will have to look into that now.
It was bad.
Oh, never mind. Then no, I won't. All right, dude. I think we've covered Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves. You want to say goodbye to everybody and get out of here?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Our very first movie review.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have more of these coming down the line, as well as our new content. I know we've been hinting at it for a while, but I think we're about to have our first couple drop here soon. Winter Wolf is going to be departing for a week or so from us, so we have some stuff. We have this coming out, and I think we have one other thing that I'll be working on to drop while he's gone. So go ahead and give it a watch. Tell us what you think. We mostly want to know what you guys want, because if you guys aren't watching it, then why are we making it? So y'all tell us how we could do better, because we're here to try to help out you guys. Why we have fun doing what we do. We're going to have fun if we're reviewing Bluey. So
I could review Bluey at length, actually. I have a top 5 list ready to go. It is one of my favorites. That's a fact. I could make that video tonight.
But I mean, we've been at this for over an hour, and if you've been here listening this whole time, go ahead, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss hot content from us. And I'll see you guys on the next one when we come back. So
nice.
Here's to you.
All right, that's it for King Z. That's also it for Winter Wolf. I couldn't say it any better. Thank you guys for hanging out with us while we checked out a movie that we both enjoyed for a change. And like King Z said, I'll be out for a hot minute next week, and but we'll be back shortly thereafter, and we'll get some new stuff on the way. These things take time. We're trying to up our game a little bit, and we appreciate you guys hanging out. And until that all drops, we'll see you guys later.